everyone, hope you're doing well. I've been kind of meaning to make this video for a couple of months now, but it's time. It's long overdue. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's been enjoying the concert video that we put out back in March. When I came up here that day, quite literally days after we were closed down at the beginning of the pandemic here. Never dreamed when I made that little show that it would be received as well as it was. So thank you all for all the notes and the well wishes and all of that. It really truly means a lot. And again, thank you. What I'm actually doing here today, many of you may or may not be aware of the fact that one of the other facets of my job besides playing the instrument here is that I also maintain the organ, whether it be staying a little late some evening after we close and doing a little bit of tuning, or like I am today. It's a Monday, we're closed, and that gives me a chance to pull some of the bigger parts of the organ apart when there's something more major that needs to be done, and we can take something apart and get it fixed and not have to worry about getting it back together by 5 o'clock or whatever time we normally open. So I'm here by myself today just doing some work on the organ, and I thought that it might be cool to take you on a little behind the scenes tour of some of the other parts that make the mighty Wurlitzer tick, as it were. Of course, you all get to see the console here on the stage and look through the windows, but let's go behind the wall there and go behind the windows and get a little up-close look at some of the other parts of the mighty Wurlitzer. Well, this is kind of a hard one to get a shot of. I'm actually standing outside the doorway of the blower room. This big black thing here in front of you is the Spencer turbine blower. It provides all of the air for the organ. The gray part right there is the 10 horsepower motor. The blower actually originally it was originally installed in the Tuxedo Theater in Detroit, Michigan. It powered a Robert Morton theater pipe organ back there. The air enters around the far side from the motor there, and then it comes out that black pipe right there. That's known as a bag or a windsock that lets it not transmit vibration, but then goes up into all of this piping, which goes down around and out into the rest of the organ and feeds the rest of the organ from there. There's also a couple of tremulants there, those wooden boxes here in the room, and I'll explain a little bit more here in a moment exactly what those do. But that's the blower, and without that, the organ doesn't do anything, really. That's where all of the air comes from. Well, we've moved into the next step of the chain, which is the pressure regulators. Those big box things down underneath the windows there. You're looking from the back now out into the dining room instead of from the dining room into the organ. And I've got the organ turned off right now because it's a little bit too noisy in here when the organ is on for you to be able to hear me. But those are just two of the pressure regulators that regulate the pressure from the big blower down to air pressure that the pipes can actually speak off of. So there's a number of those in the organ. If you've been here before, you may have noticed them kind of bouncing up and down, and a lot of people think that that's actually what pumps the air, but as you've just seen, the air actually comes from the blower. When those are bouncing, that's because the tremulants are on, which provide the vibrato to the pipes, makes it a much more musical sound. Otherwise, it's a very straight, flat sound, which can be useful for certain things as well. But they're just trying to steady the air pressure. I was talking about tremulants. There's several of those in here as well. Let me see if I can get some light on the subject, and we can take a look at a tremulant. Well, again, the organ is actually installed in here pretty tight, and so it's hard for me to get far enough away from any of this stuff to be able to really get a good shot of it. But these are actually two of the tremulants in the organ, the two of those right here. And those actually, like I say, produce the vibrato. that's very indicative of the sound of a theater organ. And what's on top here is a muffler box to quiet these down because they're inherently pretty noisy. But if I open one up, you can see what's inside here. Let me get the light a little closer too. How about here? There we go. But what is in here is, what you can't see is that this part goes up and down. It's hinged on the back end there. And there's actually a leather bellows basically that is around this that makes this portion, the upper portion, hold air. That white part that you can see down in there is a valve, and it's connected to this rod, which is connected to this lid, so that the valve and the tremulant lid actually are attached to each other, and they move up and down at the same time. So when the organ is on and the tremulant is off, there's a big, another bellows underneath, a big pneumatic that holds this lid up, and that keeps that valve closed. When you then turn the tremulant on, it allows this to drop, which opens that valve, which lets air out into the bellows here on the top. That blows this up, which then closes the valve, which then causes this to drop again. These two slats, this one and the other one there, and these little adjustment screws allow you to open and close this opening here, and that actually changes the speed, how quickly the tremulant runs. And it just sits here, and that's all it does, is it just bounces up and down and lets air in, and keeps it in or lets it out, and that varies the air pressure at the pipes, and that's what produces the vibrato, and that's also what causes the regulators to bounce up and down. Well, here's a little different view of the organ piper from inside the organ, looking out as opposed to looking in the windows. I thought it might be cool to actually come in here and point out what each of the sets of pipes are in here. Right behind the windows there is the main vox humana, and that's one of the more interesting sets of pipes in the fact that if you pay attention to your Latin, do they even teach that anymore? Vox humana is Latin for human voice, and that particular set kind of sounds like a choir if you use your imagination. On the other hand, they also kind of sound like a pack of goats. So you use your imagination, but they are very musical. The wooden ones next in line there are the concert flute. It is what it is. It literally is supposed to sound like a flute, mostly used for accompaniment and sort of thickening up other sounds. The next set of pipes, those real skinny ones in there, are called the musette, and those were made by the Kimball Company. And it's kind of one of the more rare sets of pipes in the organ. Those are kind of a buzzy sound. Yeah, that little piece of tape on the top, that one pipe doesn't quite want to speak properly, and so putting that little piece of tape around the top lengthens the resonator just a little bit, and it's brought it into speech, at least for now, until we can take it apart and fix it properly. I'm going to reach back here and just spin this tibia pipe around. That's the main chamber tibia clausa, kind of the foundation stop of a theater organ. Kind of indispensable in the kind of playing that we do here. The next one, you might notice, looks very similar to the concert flute. Well, that's because it's another concert flute. This is actually the concert flute Celeste. And what a Celeste is, you're going to hear me talk about Celestes a couple of times in the organ. A Celeste is two sets of pipes that are the same type of pipe. They sound the same, but one set, so the Celeste here, is tuned slightly sharp or flat from the unison rank up here in front, and that causes this little very pleasant, very musical, very beautiful undulation in the sound. It really warms up the sound and is a really beautiful sound. So there's the concert flute up forward, and then the concert flute celeste. The next ones right here are the tuba horn. There's actually 2 tubas in this organ, and this is the smaller one of the 2. Something to keep in mind, actually, while I'm thinking about it, is that keep in mind that these pipes, while they're installed behind glass here at the organ piper, they were actually really never meant to be seen. In a theater where these instruments were installed originally, you'd actually never see any of this. The only part that you'd ever see would be the console. And so they're not necessarily supposed to be pretty. They're just supposed to make music. Now, some other things to note. These little, let's see here, these little scrolls on the top of here, or the little stoppers on the wooden pipes, those are how you tune them. Every single one of these pipes in the organ has to be tuned. And so that's a little bit of a project a couple of times a year where we go through and tune everything. And from time to time, maybe one pipe will slip, and then we'll take an evening after we close and touch up 1 or 2 pipes. But yeah, every single one of these has to be tuned. Reed pipes like the tuba here are a little bit different. You actually don't tune them here. Those are just for voicing. It allows you to get every single note in the set to all sound the same. On reed pipes, let's see if I can get you one and show you here. On reed pipes like this particular tuba, this is, what note is this? It's a G. It says tuba horn, or also harmonic in this particular case, has this little wire down here. And let me take this particular pipe apart, and I'll bring you back and I'll show you how we tune these. So I've pulled the boot off, which is that bottom piece of the pipe. You can see that part, and then the boot is down at the bottom. And that little brass flat thing that kind of looks like a reed is just that. Every one of these reed pipes has a little reed in it, like a clarinet, except they're made of brass in a pipe organ. And that wire that sticks through the block there slides up and down on that reed, and that's how we tune all the reed pipes. If you pull the tuning wire up, it makes the pipe go flat, and if you tap that little wire down, it makes the pipe go sharp. There are actually only 2 types of pipes in an organ. There's reeds like this tuba, or flues, which are kind of like a recorder or somebody blowing over a flute. So the wood ones are flue pipes, like a flute or the tibia, and then there's reeds. Well, I put the tuba back together, and now I've spun around to look at the back chest. Pardon some of the stuff laying here. You got to remember, this organ is 95 years old for the most part, and so there's a few necessary tools and screwdrivers and things that I keep here so that if something falls apart in the middle of an evening, I can come back and make little repairs. But on this back chest here in the main chamber, the first rank is the oboe horn, and then the violin are the real thin ones in between. Then the horn diapason. Tucked in behind the horn diapason, it's hard to see, but the violin celeste is back in there. And then the back set of pipes there is another reed. That's actually the clarinet. It's kind of hard to do justice actually how tight this instrument is installed. Something that struck me the first time that I was in these chambers is that they're actually only about 10 feet deep. So they're pretty crammed in here. The next ones back with the red tape on this offset chest are the bottom octave of the main tibia. And then there's some more diapasons kind of behind that, the bottom end of the horn diapason. And then the wood bombard is up behind that. Some of the big tuba pipes is what those go into. There's also a 16-foot octave of the oboe horn back there. The bottom octave of the diapason is this metal diaphone. And then tucked in behind that, you can't even see them, is the bottom end of the concert flute. Behind me, there's also a 16-foot string. And when I say 16 foot, that's like the bottom end of a piano. The bottom octave of a piano plays in that range. And then there's a few notes down on a piano even below that go into what's known as the 32-foot range. And when I talk about feet, that quite literally means that the lowest note in that octave, so C in the 8-foot octave, generally speaking, that pipe is 8 feet long. When I talk about the 16-foot octave, generally speaking, that pipe is 16 feet long. And so that's why they get so big, and then they go all the way up into the little whistles that look like pencils. Also in here, I can pan around, and here's the back side of the swell shutters, the swell shades that control the volume of the organ. The actions are on the back side here. And then there's a little walk board right here that lets me kind of climb up and be able to access those actions. Well, now I've moved over into the other side, into the solo chamber, so you can see the console out the window there. The first rank there, the wooden ones with the stoppers, are another flute. That's known as a Lieblich flute, a really beautiful accompaniment stop made by the Wurlitzer company. Next are another pair of strings. Those are the viol d'orchestre, or VDOs as we call them. There's the unison and then the celeste. The ones with the caps on them there are known as a quintadina, another flute-like stop. The ones with the flared bells look like trumpets are exactly that. That is the trumpet in the organ. That's actually, interestingly, one of the newer sets of pipes in the organ. Those are a replica of a what's known as a brass trumpet that Wurlitzer made. These were made in the early 1990s by a company called Trivo, which makes reed pipes out in Maryland. And they sound just like the brass trumpet, but they're just made of regular pipe metal. All of these metal pipes are made up of various alloys of zinc and tin and lead, and so they're actually very fragile and also very heavy. Behind the trumpets is the solo vox humana. It's just like the one in the main, except it's voiced louder. When you get into an organ of this size, and this is kind of a medium-sized theater organ, you do tend to have some doubles of things. And that allows you to have a louder one and a softer one, or one that's a little bit brighter and one that's a little darker sounding. Lets you vary the sound a little bit. Then we move across the walkboard here where I'm standing between the chests to the back chest. There's only 2 ranks on that one right now. The first one that looks like the funnels sticking out is called the canura. Kind of like a bee in a bottle is what everybody calls them, another little buzzy stop. And then the orchestral oboe is behind that, another one of the reed ranks in the organ. Those 2 chests in the back that don't have any pipes on them are for some planned additions. I haven't quite gotten those restored and the pipes installed. A couple of things that we'll see what exactly ends up on those chests, but I'm sure it'll be useful, whatever it ends up being. Well, now I've moved up to the last chest in the organ. I affectionately refer to this as the brass chest, but there's not all that much brass on it. The first set of pipes over here on the right is the violoncello, another set of Kimball strings, beautiful Kimball strings. Then the wooden ones are the solo tibia clausa. The violoncello celeste is right behind that, followed by the big diaphonic diapason. We have the other tuba in the organ, the tuba mirabilis. And then you actually can't even see it, but tucked behind the tuba, and I don't know if I can get a shot, maybe you can start to see some of the pipes, the English post horn, which is a really bright, actually the loudest rank of pipes in the organ, is kind of tucked in behind the tuba there. It's kind of hard to see. On the back wall is the 16-foot octave of the tibia clausa. And pardon the noise in here, you're actually hearing the fans in the power supplies for the lights, for the LED lights here in the chambers. They make a little bit of noise, but when the organ is playing, you don't hear them. There's some other things in here. If I keep spinning around and look back out into the rest of the chamber, again, the pipes with the red ribbons on them are the 8-foot octave of the tibia. Behind that is the big wood diaphone. Those are some of the biggest, loudest bass pipes in the organ. That's the bottom end of the diapason in here. There's some 8-foot strings across on the other side there. The other tuba is over here. Sorry, don't want to make you sick. The metal tuba, the bottom end of the tuba mirabilis, is right there. And then these little small pipes right in the foreground here are what's known as a mixture. And these actually aren't even hooked up at this point. They're in the organ, but I need to get them playing one of these days. A mixture is what provides the brilliance and the top end in a classical organ. And they're not the most used thing in a theater organ. In fact, most theater organs don't even have them. But when we do something like Phantom of the Opera, these will add a pretty big difference to those types of ensembles at some point in the future. And once again, the swell shutters up here and the wind lines that feed them and the top end of the trumpet, and that's the solo chamber. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our little tour of the organ. I should mention that if you go to our website, the Organ Piper's website, again, organpiperpizza.com, if you find the page, I think it's called Specifications. If you click on the Mighty Wurlitzer or the theater organ, I don't remember how it's worded on the website, but if you go looking through there, there's a page called the Specification. And that page has all of these pipes and most of the percussions listed on it. And you can actually click on those. Those are all links that take you to little audio samples of what the individual sets of pipes, and actually many of the percussions as well, takes you to audio clips of what that stuff sounds like. So if you want to go through and watch the video and then click on the sounds, you can actually see what these things sound like, kind of as I'm showing them to you. So hopefully this was informative and entertaining, and well, hopefully we get to see you all here at the Organ Piper soon. It's kind of a bummer. I on a personal note, really miss seeing everybody. We all totally understand. I'm not in a big hurry to be out in a restaurant full of people either. And so we totally understand. I will mention, if you've made it this far in the video, please feel free to support your local businesses like us. We're not a big corporation, and this pandemic thing has certainly not been easy on anyone in the restaurant business, but especially small businesses like the Organ Piper. Again, we're open for dine-in if you want to join us. If not, again, totally understand. We do carry out. We still are doing the whole frozen pizza thing. I know it's not quite the same, but we're still offering those. You can call us during our normal business hours and get any of that stuff. The other thing, again, is gift certificates. We will actually do gift certificates. We haven't got them online yet, but we will do them over the phone. If you call the restaurant during our hours of operation, you can speak to somebody, and we'll gladly mail you a gift certificate. Every little bit helps in this time. We'll hopefully make it all through, and hopefully everybody's staying safe and healthy, and hopefully we'll see you all again real soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks.